Next up, we're going to graph a cube root function. So here is the parent cube root function, the cube root of x. And to graph this, we're going to make a quick xy table, or input-output table. So we've got x and then the f of x, also known as y. And remember from our last video, the x values, the input, that would be the domain of the function, and the output values would be considered the range of the function. We'll talk about those in a minute. So as I plug in numbers, first one easy to plug in would be 0. If I were to take the cube root of 0, I would get 0. So that means 0, 0 is a point that's on our graph. The next one I could plug in would be 1. The cube root of positive 1 is positive 1. So 1, 1 is a point that's on our graph. The next one that I would plug in would be the next perfect cube, which would happen to be 8. So kind of moving over here, the cube root of 8 would be 2. So 8, 2 is the next point that's on our graph. Now, when I had square roots in the last video, we had just this single curve starting from a particular point, and we said negative numbers couldn't work. What a big circle, nothing doing here. No output if I plug in a negative number. Well, the cube root's a little different. If I were to take the cube root of negative 1, I would get negative 1, because negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. So I get negative 1 for an output. Same if I plug in negative 8, the cube root of negative 8 is negative 2. So negative 8 gives me negative 2 for an output. And this pattern would continue in both directions. The next one you'd plug in would be 27, which would be way off my graph, but that's okay. So I'll draw a curve that looks something like this with arrows at both ends. Now because I have the arrows at both ends, because I'm able to take any positive number and 0 and any negative number and plug it in, I would say that the domain of this function would be all real numbers. I can plug in anything I possibly want into this odd root function. My range then would be the same, because there's no limit on to what y values I can get, positive y's or negative y's. So I would say that my range is also all real numbers, and it will be the case. This is true for any cube root function, no matter where it is. So that would be cube root function's parent graph.